Yo, 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 what's up again? It's your boy Watchman, and this browsing video, right? I'm just gonna be talking about Rolex, strictly Rolex, right? My previous video was all about watches, under $10,000 that were not Rolex. So this video is just gonna be all about Rolex. I'm going to be talking about which Rolexes you should buy at what price point, and I'm gonna be comparing Rolexes with Rolexes. All right, so I'm going to. Is it possible to exclude everything but Rolex? That doesn't matter. Okay, so let's start Rolexes. Right, what's your entry level Rolex? In You know what? I think the cheapest, I don't want to use the word cheapest, right? But the the least expensive Rolex is probably going to be your Rolex Datejust, right? I just know this one, right? Or your Rolex Oyster Perpetual, but I think for a Rolex you gotta spend at least $3,000. Okay, let's see what you get with three between the $3,000 and $4,000 mark for Rolex. Let's see. Right, so Rolex between three and four, you're gonna have your Datejust. You could there, right? Vintage Rolex Datejust. I would pick this over just the Oyster Perpetual date. You could also get a Rolex Oyster Perpetual. I like this one because I believe this is a 36 mil time only watch. So even though it's only 36 millimeter in diameter, because it's a time only watch, the watch will present itself as a lot larger than 36 millimeter. In fact, will probably look bigger than a Datejust, right? Because the Datejust has a date feature, and it just kind of, it just kind of takes away a little bit from the size of the dial, if you know what I mean, right? So if you want a big looking watch that's not crazy big, I think a 36 millimeter time only watch like this Oyster Perpetual 116000, or the traditional Rolex Explorer 14270. I think you can find those for under 4,000, maybe not. I think you would be lucky to find one. I really love this one. In fact, this is my favorite one. The Rolex Oyster Perpetual 116369 dial. So it's basically same proportions as a Rolex Explorer, but it's a blue dial. I think that's a really sexy looking watch, really funky looking watch. I think, wow, look at that, guys. That's gorgeous, right? I think if this were to be, if you were getting into the brand, right? You want to buy like I would say an entry level Rolex. I would honestly prefer this over a Datejust. A Datejust is just so ubiquitous. Yes, it's a great watch, right? There's no denying it. It's iconic. It's timeless. It's classic. It's super versatile. But in my opinion, this blue dial Oyster Perpetual with the 369 layout, that's my favorite right there. Okay, the Datejust, just looks a little bit. It's a businessman's watch, right? It's a very safe choice. It's very neutral. There's not a lot of. I can't say there's a lot of personality, right? When I see someone who wears a Datejust, I'm like, oh, that's a nice watch, but I can't really gauge much about his personality, right? It's a very conservative choice, right? Datejust is a good watch, right? Owned by people who may not necessarily care too much about watches, but they just want a good timepiece, and they know Rolex is a great timepiece, and the Datejust is a staple, right? Datejust is a staple, but You know, if I see someone with this Oyster Perpetual 369 blue dial, I know the guy's a watch enthusiast because he has done a bit of research, he has done a bit of thinking and soul searching and decided that, hey, man, this is what I like. And to me, that's a lot about what this whole hobby is all about, right? It's really about expressing yourself, your tastes, your thoughts, your values, your sense of self, or your personality, flair, and good taste, right? So, right, so at this price point, $3,000 to $4,000, right, my pick is a 36 millimeter modern Oyster Perpetual, the 116000. So there's a 36 millimeter. They got a lot of funky looking dials, but I have to say, oh, this is also a really beautiful one. Look at this blue Datejust. Right. My preference is a smooth bezel Datejust. I'm not a big fan of uh, the fluted bezel. But I guess I'm just a sucker for Rolex blue, you know. Rolex makes a really brilliant dark blue, which really shines at different angles when you put it against the light. I'm a fan of this Datejust. I like this Datejust. But I still prefer the 369 36 millimeter Oyster Perpetual. That is a sexy piece. Of course, right? You can't go wrong with a Datejust, right? You just absolutely can't go wrong. But at the same time, it's not a watch which will excite watch enthusiasts, right? It won't get their juices flowing. This is kind of cool, right? Two-tone blue Datejust, very nice watch too, right? That's actually pretty interesting looking. Right, I like this. If it's a two-tone, you know, I think that if you want a two-tone Datejust, go with this one. Really cool looking, right? Don't I really dislike the two-tone Datejust with a white dial or a champagne dial. It just looks so like middle-aged businessman kind of look, you know. If that's what you are and that's what you're going for, then good for you. Okay, so let's see. Let's go up a price bracket between 4,000 and 5,000. This is where things will start to open up for Rolexes, right? See what kind of choices you have. And hey, right off the bat, right, the first one that comes up is the Rolex Explorer 2, and it's really hard to beat this watch in terms of value. I think the Explorer 2, the Polar Dial, is just a quintessential Rolex. It just represents everything good about the brand. You know, it's understated. It is clean. It is rugged. It's robust. It's functional. It's elegant. It's versatile. It's proportional. It's just so cute. You know, it's just so. Hey, this watch is me. I love it, and you know, I'm not looking to outdo anybody, but at the same time, I can hold my own kind of watch, right? That's what it says about the user, about the wearer. My apologies. So at this price point, you can also purchase a Milgauss, right? The Rolex Milgauss, and you can have the Oyster Perpetual as well. This is the latest Oyster Perpetual 114300. Now I prefer the 36 mil, the 116000, right? And the reason being that even though this is 39, even though this is a bigger watch, I feel that it's a little too big because it's a time only watch, right? I believe that if a Rolex is a 39 mil watch or 40 mil watch, right, it should have a date feature or a bezel or like a rotating bezel around or a tachymeter bezel. For it to be only a time only watch, it can look a little bit redundant, you know, like it doesn't need to be so big, if you know what I mean. I'm only saying this from experience because I did own the Milgauss, right? I owned a Rolex Milgauss Z Blue, and I felt it was just a little bit too big for a time only watch. My wrists are average size, maybe a little bit more on the slender side, but because it was a time only watch, it just looked a little bit too big. So that would be my only critique, right, of a 39 millimeter time only Rolex. And right here, right, we got perfection right here, the 114270 Rolex Explorer. I think that is, the sweet spot. It is iconic. This is the watch which started it all, the history, right, with Sir Edmund Hillary. I don't know if it's true or not, but he apparently wore a Rolex Explorer, and it's a legend, right? With the Rolex Explorer came the Rolex 1016, and from that it became the Submariner. Fantastic watch, right? James Bond, James Bond in the novel, he wore a Rolex Explorer, and it is just such a gentlemanly watch. I actually gave one to my brother, right? It was a gift from me to him, and he's not a watch guy, but he really enjoys wearing that piece, right? The Rolex Explorer 14270 is just a true icon, right? Would you rather have this or the Rolex Explorer 2? That's there you go, right? That's a first world problem right there. Um, hey, you know what? Maybe you can have both, right? Get one Explorer 14270, and then you get the Explorer 2 Polar, right? You got a white dial, black dial watch. Um, Beautiful watches, right? That would be a true first world problem, right? I think at this price point, I would completely skip out on the Datejust, right? I would go either Milgauss, Explorer, or Explorer 2, right? I would definitely pass on the Milgauss at this price. Sorry, I would definitely pass at the Datejust at this point because, the other watches are just so much more interesting and just it has so much more excitement, flavor, adventure to it, right? The Datejust is, businessman kind of watch. It's just nothing too exciting in my opinion, right? That's the impression that I get. Okay, so there you go. Between 4 and 5,000, you know what to get. Let's bring it up a notch. 5,000 to $6,000. Let's see what we get here. I think now, oh no, oh no, oh no, this is where it gets very, very difficult. Okay, right, you can have the Milgauss, right, Rolex Milgauss. The Explorer 2 is still available, but now we can afford a Rolex Submariner two-tone bluesy. What does it say here? A solid ending beater, over polished. So this has been over polished. Doesn't seem over. What does over polished mean? Maybe the bracelet is over polished. I don't know, watch case looks okay, but I can see how the bracelet is over polished. But, well, you got a beater right here, $6,000. Not sure, you just gotta, if you were interested in this watch in particular, make sure you ask the guy to provide you better pictures and show you where parts are over polished, because I feel that this term is highly subjective, right? What's over polished to him may not be over polished to you, so it's all subjective, right? But I think that's a really good deal. You can get a Submariner two-tone at this price. Fantastic. Okay, you have the new Rolex Air King. A rather controversial watch. It is essentially it's pretty much a Milgauss. They use the exact same case. This Air King even has the anti-magnetic, what do you call it? Anti-magnetic protection cover. The only difference is that the Milgauss has polished center links, whereas this is a complete brush finish on the bracelet. So that's up to your preference, right? I think having owned the Milgauss, I think the dial layout for the Air King is more appropriate for the case size because it's a busy dial. It can pull it off, whereas the Milgauss dial uh, is a little, has just a little bit more real estate, so it can look a little bland. But with the Air King, right, with the busy dial, I think it works better with a 40 millimeter case, time only watch. So if you like this watch, hey, go for it, right? This is for someone who knows what he wants. It's not for everybody, but I can definitely appreciate someone who owns a Rolex Air King, right? It's still a fairly new watch. I mean, it was released in 2014, I want to say, right? At least 2 years ago. And the prices have come down a bit, right? When these first came out, people were pretty crazy for it, but now a lot more are available in the market, and it seems to have come down in price to be about 5,200 or so. You can own a Rolex Submariner pre-ceramic 16610. You can have the no date sub. This is the one I have. Beautiful watch. I really love this piece. Right, the aesthetics, the proportions. It's pretty much an homage 5513, if you ask me. The nice thing is that you can actually use it because it has modern materials, and it's got a sapphire case, and that's a good thing, right? Like, you wouldn't really go diving with a vintage sub. But with this 14060, yeah, I would go diving with this, no problem. Definitely go swimming, no problem, right? I won't even think twice. Okay, this Air King. Now this is a bit expensive, but I guess because it's been discontinued, this is a traditional Air King size, right? He's just charging. I think he's just kind of like testing the water, see if someone will pay 5,600 for the older Air King, just because it's been discontinued. I would say no. I mean, I pass on that. It's a little too expensive. So far at this price point, between $5,000 and $6,000, you have the latest Air King, and you have variations of Submariners. Right? I would pass up on the Rolex Explorer. I feel that I feel that it's not worth paying extra for the newest Rolex Explorer. I would just go with the Rolex Explorer 114270 just because it's more true to form, right? And I think it's just a little bit more proportional. It's a time only watch. I think 36 millimeter for time only is perfect. Right? You don't need a 39 millimeter size case for a time only watch, right? At this price point, I would not buy a Datejust. No Datejust for me, right? Either Submariner or latest Air King, if that's what you like, or yeah, Submariner or Air King. Okay. Anything else? Anything else interesting? Stay away from Rolex Cellinis. Stay away from their dress watches. Well, look, you can even get the Rolex Milgauss GV for 5,500. So I think I would pick this over the Air King, over the Rolex Air King. Just my preference, right? But if you like the Air King, go for it. But in my opinion, at this price point, between 5,000 and 6,000, oh, sorry guys, there we go. Sea Dweller, that's the one to get. All right, get a Sea Dweller. You don't want a Sea Dweller, get the Submariner. You don't want a Submariner, get a Milgauss. You don't like the Milgauss, get the latest Rolex Air King. right? At this price point, you should be avoiding Datejust. You should be avoiding the older Air Kings, right? No Datejust, and even Explorer 2, right? It would be a little too expensive at this price point. Explorer 2 should be, you should be only paying about 4,500. Okay, so let's go on to the next price point. It's between $6,000, $7,000. Let's see. What do we have here? $6,000 and $7,000. Okay, you got two-tone bluesies. Nice watch, right? Like I said before, you should be avoiding all Datejust unless you want the latest Datejust 2 or big Datejust, which I think are not very popular. And I've seen them in the wild as well. I've seen people wear the new Datejust 41mm Datejust 2, and it just doesn't look good. I'm just not a fan. I would much rather have them wear the. I'd much rather see a 36mm modern Datejust. I think that's a lot more proportional. It's just the new ones just looks too ostentatious. It's kind of like it's very in your face, you know. I'm not saying that uh, that all Rolexes are not in your face. You know, most of them are. A lot of them are really in your face, but I think at this price point, you want to get a Rolex Submariner. Well, look at this one, 16800. I believe this is a very semi-vintage. I'm not sure if this one is a plastic crystal yet. I think it's sapphire. It may be the first sapphire model. I'm not too sure. I'm not too well versed in my Submariners. Oh, there's a small nick in the crystal, therefore it is sapphire. So there you go, right? This is a transitional Submariner, right? Potentially good investment piece. I think that's good buying, right? At this price point, $6,000 for a Submariner. You're not gonna lose very much money, right? These things are blue chip watches. Anything else that stands out? No, I would stay away from. Yeah, you could get a Yachtmaster, although I'm not a big fan. Like I said from my previous video, it's a little bit bland for me. I would go with a Submariner for sure. You could get the latest Explorer 2. I feel it's a little bit too big. Not a fan of it, but if you want a big Rolex, with GMT function, then Explorer 2 is the watch for you, right? I prefer the black dial over the white dial, and you got a two-tone Yachtmaster, very early Rolex. No, what is this watch? Wow, I can't believe it sold. Someone bought it. I don't know, some guy bought it, paid a lot of money for this old Rolex, which in my opinion does not really represent. I don't know, it doesn't appeal to me. Vintage Rolexes, I think you gotta. You want a vintage Rolex that's smaller, you look for the bubble back, right? I wouldn't go for these ones. 6100, probably a fake, a scammer right here. Right, you gotta be careful with. You gotta be careful when you buy watches online, right? You gotta research the seller. There is Sea Dweller, perfect, 6,800, box and papers. Super cool watch. Now it gets interesting because now you can afford yourself a ceramic GMT. So here we got a first world problem, right? Do you want a, pre-ceramic Submariner, pre-ceramic Sea Dweller, pre-ceramic two-tone bluesy, or do you want the, you know, GMT LN, right? Because that is a really sexy piece, right? Beautiful GMT Master 2 ceramic. You know, I can't answer that for you, right? That's a problem you have to solve on your own. Yachtmasters, you can get a no-date ceramic sub, or do you go for the pre-ceramic no-date sub? They seem to be, yeah, they seem to be catching up in price. The pre-ceramics are slowly creeping up to the price levels of the ceramic Rolexes, and that's something that's very interesting. The gap has definitely closed. All right, in many instances, the GMT Master 2, the pre-ceramics, they are at the same price. They are commanding the same price as the ceramic GMTs, right, which is always interesting. Right, so you have a pre-ceramic GMT, pre-ceramic Rolex. Hang on to those pieces for dear life, simply because Rolex are no longer producing those watches, and right. Look at vintage Rolexes right now, right? Look at the vintage 1675, vintage 5512, right? They're all more expensive than way more expensive than the current generation Rolexes, right? So at this price point, between 6 and 7 thousand, you can get a GMT pre-ceramic, you can get a GMT ceramic, you can get a no-date ceramic, right? You got a lot of choices right here. So my advice to you, if you're looking into Rolex, right, figure out how much you want to spend first. You've got the most choice and most options if you're willing to spend up to 7,000 US dollars. You can get essentially every Rolex that you want except for the Daytona and the Sky Dweller, and of course, precious metal ones. But you would be able to attain, I'd say, 75% of the Rolex models. Okay, so, and I think that's perfect, right? I think even for Rolex, I wouldn't want to spend too much on a Rolex. If I were to spend like 10, beyond $10,000, I would have to look at brands beyond Rolex, right? Or I don't know, maybe at that price point, the Rolex Daytona would be the best watch to own. So let's see. Okay, what do we have here? Let's go 10,000, 7,000. Let's see what we have here. Okay, so wow. Wow. So when we go up to 10,000, things really start to open up, because you're gonna have a tough time, very tough time. Where you have your Batman, your Hulk, Yachtmaster, also another beautiful watch, and that's the one I own. Beautiful, beautiful. I really love this blue dial Yachtmaster. You can have a two-tone GMT Master 2, which I really love as well. I think the green GMT hand just goes so well with the yellow gold, the two-tone yellow gold. You can get a Kermit Submariner. That's also another iconic, beautiful watch if you like green. I definitely do prefer the Kermit over the Hulk. I feel that even though green's my favorite color, I think the Hulk is just too green for me. It's just so well executed in the Kermit, and that's the one I would go for. And prices for these have really skyrocketed. I remember I was looking at these 3 years ago. I think they were going for about 5,000 US dollars. Now it's like 8,950. That's a lot of money. But so far, the one I really like is you know what? I think the Kermit. My brother has the GMT Batman, beautiful watch as well. But I think the Kermit is just it's a beautiful watch, right? At this point, I would ignore all Datejust, no Datejust. Right, you got a sturdy dial for the Submariner, not my style, a little bit too blingy for me. Right, you got two-tone subs. Right, you got your ceramic subs. You have your ceramic GMTs. Those are all available. Right, so up to $10,000, you can have ceramic GMTs, ceramic Submariners. You can have the Yachtmaster. You can have the pre-ceramic Kermit. I think those are the ones to go for at that price point. Maybe the Sea Dweller 4000, that would be another watch to consider. Although I think those have definitely gone up in price and value because it's obviously been discontinued. This is a deep sea dweller, not my style, just a little too big. There we go. Sea Dweller 4000. My other brother, he has this watch. Beautiful, beautiful watch. Extremely proportional. It has the classic proportions with a ceramic bezel. Some people say it's the apologists. Is Rolex compromising? Another critique of it is the end links. I don't know if you can look over here, but it kind of like protrudes a little bit right over here. And some people just get a little bit, I don't know, they just don't like that, right? Over here, this area, it just sticks out a little bit. Alright, so it's not flush, right? It doesn't sit flush. Some people think that it was a mistake by Rolex, but Rolex does not make mistakes. They purposely made the end link protrude to give the visual, to make the watch look longer, right? If they did not, I think the watch would just look a little too stubby, almost too chunky. But by protruding the end links, you give it a more proportional length look to the watch. So beautiful watch. I think this is actually the one to get at this price point for $10,000. Try pick up the Sea Dweller 4000, where simply because it's been discontinued. Rolex will no longer make it, and it's a beautiful watch. It's the last of the Sea Dwellers without a Cyclops, and it's the first Sea Dweller with a ceramic. I don't know, there's a lot of first and last going on with this watch, right? It's a transitional. This is truly a transitional Sea Dweller, and it was only made for a couple years, so I would go for this, right? The Sea Dweller 4000. Right, I would go for this watch. And right, the Kermit, I think it's just a little bit. The Kermit, you got to be careful, right? Because the dial can easily be replaced to a maxi dial. The bezel, of course, can easily be replaced. So you got to be careful with these watches. And I'd say it's a toss-up between the Kermit and the Sea Dweller 4000 for me. Right, I would avoid the deep sea. It's just a little bit too big for me. Okay, so let's take a look. 10,000, and let's see, what can we get from Rolex? 20,000. Let's take a look. Okay, right, so we're now in Daytona territory. So Rolex Daytonas, my impression or my observation. So I managed to fortunately pick up a pre-ceramic Daytona right when the ceramic Daytona came up, right? Because I say 2 years ago, 2015, was it when they released it? About 2015. Everybody was just so crazy for the ceramic Daytona, and they were just kind of everybody was kind of offloading their the pre-ceramic 116520 Daytonas. I managed to pick one at I won't say it's cheap, but I paid less than 10,000 US dollars for it. I think I paid 9,500 US dollars for it, and now they are going for, well, this guy is selling it for 15, low 15s. You know, it's crazy, right? But like I said, the pre-ceramic Rolexes, they are, you know, they're closing the gap with the, you know, the latest generation Rolexes. And what's interesting is that when the ceramic Daytonas came out, everybody was crazy for the white dial. And the white dial probably cost almost, you know, people were paying in excess of 20% over over the black dial Daytona to get a white dial, right? And in my opinion, I think the black dial looks better just because the white dial here just looks a little bit too, sorry, the white dial Daytona just looks, it just doesn't blend very well. You know, the ceramic Daytona is a shiny black, and then you have such a brilliant white. It just does not, there's no, it does not flow well from the black to the white. Whereas for the black dial ceramic Daytonas, it it just works a lot better for me. You know, it's black on black, right? It's a beautiful watch. It's very futuristic, and when you observe the prices, they are pretty much on par. I would say that the white dial still has a slight premium over the black dial, but it's almost negligible right now, right? If you were to, if you really wanted a Daytona, which Daytona to get? They're all so expensive, guys. I don't know what to tell you. Which Daytona to get? I think uh, get the one you prefer. For me, I still prefer the pre-ceramic Daytona. So that's why I got it. You know, I saw the ceramic Daytona, I looked at it, there was just so much hype over it, but essentially it was the same watch. And the price difference was just so great that it really made the pre-ceramic Daytonas look like it was a good deal, you know. So that was also a factor in my decision making. But right now, you know, you look at the pre-ceramic Daytonas, they're only about $2,000 less than the ceramic Daytonas. So, um, given that, I don't know, just go with the one you like, right? Go with the one you like. See what design you like. Do you like a steel bezel? Do you like a ceramic bezel? I think if you really want a Daytona, just go with the one you want. You know, they're gonna cost. They're gonna. They pretty much cost the same right now, right? So you've got this one's really interesting. The Rolex Turnograph. I'm a huge fan of the Turnograph, and this is, I believe, like a Japan only model. Uh, what does this say? There is Japanese edition. Beautiful watch. The green and the two-tone. Really, really sexy looking watch. That's so cool. So at this price point, you know, if you're willing to spend up to $20,000 on a Rolex, I think you just gotta go with a Daytona, right? I wouldn't spend this much on a GMT Master 2 pre-ceramic or a vintage sub. You see, this is where it gets really really tricky. Do you want a vintage sub, or do you want a Daytona? Or, you know, at this price point, you could get like you know, there are a lot of vintage Rolexes to get, right? Look at this Rolex 6202, right? Really old watch. 12,000 for LV. Oh, that's a lot. Right, vintage Sea Dweller. Right, would you get this or Daytona? Right, that is a tough. That's a tough one, right? For me, I would go for the Daytona because I feel that the vintage Rolexes, they're just a little bit more delicate, and you know, I think their waterproofing is just not as reliable, and therefore, if a Rolex dive watch you can't really do what it's supposed to do, then it kind of like defeats the purpose, right? Whereas you see over here, you can get there. You want a vintage Sea Dweller. This is not even like really vintage, the 6660. Or would you like the Rolex Daytona? I would pick the Daytona over the Sea Dweller. Right? I would just pick this and just get a regular Sea Dweller, pre-ceramic Sea Dweller. I'm not a vintage Rolex guy, so my opinion would be biased, right? So look here, vintage Rolex GMT 1675. This guy's asking for 11,500 pounds, which is I think about 16,000 US dollars. All right, so look at that, right? Would you rather have these vintage, right? Would you have a vintage Submariner or a vintage GMT or a Rolex Daytona, or the latest Rolex Sky Dweller, right? First world problems, but in my opinion, I would much rather have the Daytona at this price point, right? Between $15,000 and $20,000, I would go for the Daytona, and I would pass up on the vintage Rolexes just because I'm just not a vintage guy. I'm not a vintage Rolex guy. I think they're just a little bit too expensive, and I would not be able to use the watch, carefreely. I would not be able to freely use the watch. I always be too concerned. Whereas with a modern Rolex, where I know I can easily go swimming with it, I don't have to baby it too much. Whereas a vintage Rolex, I just always be a little uncomfortable owning it, and I would be uncomfortable using it. Okay, let's see what else. I think that's about it, right? So at this price point, up to $20,000, right? You go vintage Rolexes, or right, avoid the Cellini. Vintage GMT, vintage Submariner, vintage Sea Dweller, or Daytona. And my choice is the Daytona. Right, beautiful watches. A lot of beautiful watches. Okay, anyway, I don't think you should be spending more than $20,000 on a Rolex unless it's an all gold watch, and that's not really my style, so I can't really give you much advice on that. Anyway, I hope you found this video on Rolexes interesting and informative. I'm Watchman, and I'm out. Peace.